We are pleased to introduce you to this local initiative developed to support our community partners who are working with children, young people, individuals and families across the Mid-North Coast who are experiencing domestic and family violence. We would like to acknowledge a Child and Family Interagency who provided invaluable insight to the amazing work they are doing every day. The result of this collaboration is the Domestic and Family Violence Flowchart, the 5 Rs, which are recognise, assess risk, respond, refer and restore. Domestic and family violence is everyone's business. The Domestic and Family Violence Services cannot do this work alone.
The first step is to recognise. Domestic and family violence remains at unacceptably high rates across all of our communities on the Mid-North Coast, with 1 in 3 women experiencing domestic and family violence in their past or present relationship. Due to increased conversations in our community about domestic and family violence, more and more people are feeling safe to come forward to disclose what's happening for them in their homes. In your role, this means that you might find that more of your clients are feeling safe to talk to you about the support that they need to become safe. Domestic and family violence does not discriminate, so it's important to be alert to some members of community who might be more vulnerable than others. This includes people who experience a disability, young people, children, those from migrant and refugee backgrounds, and the LGBTIQ+ community. In your role, you might find yourself working with somebody who has been using domestic and family violence in their relationships. For example, you may be working with a client who discloses they've been excluded from their home due to an AVO. In these situations, it's important to know that your role can really make a difference to the safety of women and children.
The next step is to assess risk. The state government recently introduced legislation to introduce the Domestic Violence Safety Assessment Tool. This was in order to create a common language around threat and serious threat experienced by our client groups. It is important for you to be familiar with your policies and procedures, as well as any risk assessment tools you use within your own organisation. It's so important for us to remember that clients are the best judge of where they're at in terms of their safety. Whether they decide to remain in the relationship or whether they decide to leave, it is important that we always let them lead in building a safety plan, no matter what the outcome. You can always make contact with your local Domestic and Family Violence Specialist Service or 1-800-RESPECT to get guidance on how to move forward and respond to the risks that you've identified with your client. Please also keep your supervisors in the loop and get support, because it can be a really confronting space to work within.
Once you have identified that your client is experiencing domestic and family violence and you have explored the risk, it is important to respond accordingly. It is crucial to understand that domestic and family violence is life-threatening, and you may be required to contact the police or the Child Protection Helpline if you think someone is at risk of significant harm. Be led by your supervisors and your workplace policies and procedures. Children and young people who live in homes where domestic and family violence are present are not bystanders to the violence. We know they can have long-term effects, including youth homelessness, poor physical and mental health, and challenges at school. Be the voice for children and young people and make sure to advocate for their rights to safety.
The next step is to refer. With DV being so prevalent in our communities, now more than ever, it's important that we work together in a coordinated, collaborative, multi-agency response. When referring to other services, it's important that you stay involved with your client. They are the ones that put trust in you in disclosing the domestic and family violence. Domestic and Family Violence Specialist Services can actually work behind you as the caseworker, providing guidance, support and resourcing to a case plan where you're working towards safety. Before referring to a Domestic and Family Violence Specialist Service, perhaps consider the things that you could already get started on with your client. This might be an application to Victim Services for immediate needs or counselling, going into Centrelink to change their details or find out what they're entitled to. You might even be able to see if you can go to Housing New South Wales and start an application for a product such as Start Safely that the client may be eligible for. Domestic and family violence is the largest contributing factor of homelessness for women and children in Australia. Crisis accommodation is limited and in high demand. What we'd also like to express as specialist services is that communal living is not for everyone. People with unmanaged mental health or unmanaged drug and alcohol issues need a more tailored and individualised response. In addition to your local crisis accommodation service, there are other supports available. These are through DV Line, Link to Home, or your local housing provider who can assist with temporary accommodation. Please know that by working together, communicating clearly, and working toward the client-led goals means that we can achieve safety for women and children in our communities.
The final step is to restore. Your safety and well-being is paramount. When working with clients who are experiencing domestic and family violence, it is normal to feel a range of emotions and concern for their safety and well-being. When a person chooses to remain in a violent home, it is also normal to feel frustrated, concerned, and worried for their safety. In these cases, remember that it can take between 7 and 13 times to leave a violent relationship. And statistically, this is the most dangerous time for women and children. Please know that by keeping the door open, making sure clients know that they can come back and see you, and having conversations about safety makes a difference. Keep supporting them, give them control to make decisions, to engage support for them and their families. Make sure you debrief, have support from your manager or supervisor, and practice self-care.
Please always reach out to your local domestic and family violence specialist services for support, advice and consultation. We hope that this relationship, alongside the additional information on your local flowchart, can help build knowledge, resources and capacities within your own service.